to yield to my colleague, Representative Blanco, for some questions.
Gentleman yields. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Representative Schaefer. Representative Schaefer, are you a fiscal conservative?
Try to be.
How much are we spending on border security?
You have the conference report in front of you.
We passed $565 million out of the House, and the Senate tacked on $300 million. As a fiscal conservative, wouldn't you like some accountability on how we're spending that taxpayers' dollars?
And I believe we have that.
How?
I believe that you can go and you can get the reports from DPS to see what they're doing. I've done that. I see the reports. I'm satisfied with those reports. I believe we have the LBB that's going to be getting reports. I believe we have all sorts of special accounting. Do you know that during the interim, we put DPS under some particular fiscal review for this operation? So I believe there's quite a bit of scrutiny going on with what's happening on the border.
And I agree with you. We do have numbers. But unfortunately, those numbers are Border Patrol numbers and local law enforcement numbers. Have you read Operation Strong Safety report issued by DPS?
I have.
And what does that report tell us?
Well, let me ask you this. Have you sat in the Operations Center for the National Guard? I can't recall. It's been months since I read that report.
I just need an answer for the question.
It's been months since I read that report, so I can't recall the
detail.
So
in that report, it specifically says that we're doing all of this for border security. When you turn at the very back of the report and it lists its references, it references U.S. Border Patrol and several local law enforcement agencies. There are no references to DPS numbers.
You could have gone and sat with the battle watch captain for the Texas National Guard and gone through the entire operation brief like I did. I sat there for 2 hours with my staff, and they showed me specific numbers of what they were doing.
Representative Schaefer, I'm not talking about the National Guard. I'm talking about DPS. We're talking about funding DPS.
They had DPS numbers as well.
Right.
The DPS can tell you how many people they've arrested.
They have told me loud and clear, and those numbers are federal. So how as a fiscal conservative who says that Washington doesn't work can vote on a piece of legislation that spends millions of dollars in taxpayers' funds for something that we can't measure? I mean, you're an intelligence officer in the Navy. You know that to measure success in a mission requires accountability and data.
We have it. It's there if you look hard enough. Now, if you look at it with an outcome in mind, maybe you don't see it.
I agree.
But I can tell you that if you go spend time with them,
if you go spend time with them,
if you read their reports that come out weekly, it's there. And you know, another thing that you can't do, and you know this from people who study conflicts, you can't determine whether a crime hasn't been committed. You can't determine whether an illegal river crossing hasn't occurred because you were there. So there's many things that we'll never be able to determine with specificity. We know that.
Right.
But I can also tell you that I sat and talked to a young sergeant whose family lived on the border. And he told me he said, my parents, their house backs up to the river, and they were so thankful that since we've been here, the illegals have stopped rattling their windows at night, stopped testing their locks, and they were thankful. And let me tell you, that is accountability. Going down there and asking the questions and seeing it with your own eyes is accountability, and that's available to all of us.
Representative Schaefer, that's a beautiful anecdote. But again, you're talking about National Guard. I'm talking about DPS. This is specific to DPS. I'm proud of our men and women in uniform.
So do you not accept the number of marijuana, the amount of marijuana that's been seized, things like that? You don't think that that's a metric?
I'm for border security. I just want to make sure that we're doing what we're doing on the border, and how much we're spending money on is effective. Look, I live on the border. I want to be able to tell industry and business that come to our border communities and tell them, stay, create jobs here, create industry, we're safe. I can't say that with DPS numbers.
Can you put a price on the things they've deterred? Can you quantify that for me? See, you can't. So
I can quantify federal numbers because DPS does a fantastic job of reporting federal numbers and taking credit for our border sheriffs and our border law enforcement officers. We're spending lots of money, and all we can get from this report is that tickets are higher on the
No,
border.
that's not all you can get.
That's
If you read
absolutely true.
90 pages is one of the last reports that I read.
And that's the
it had
report
a
I read,
lot
and it
of
was
stuff
all
in
it
there
was
that
all
very
Federal
good.
Border Patrol.
It's not just Federal Border Patrol.
Show me the page where it's not Federal Border Patrol.
You know for a fact from experience standing on the border that our DPS are making apprehensions. You know for a fact that our
They
National
are.
Guardsmen
Less than
are
10%.
reporting. And so this idea that you're just not satisfied with the way the report reads. But that's
Absolutely.
no
That's
reason
called
for us to say there's
accountability and
no
transparency.
accountability.
That's called accountability and transparency. We need to know what we're getting. We need to know if we're safer or not.
So you
That's
don't
all I'm
think
trying
we're
to figure
safer?
out.
You don't think we're safer because the Guard and the DPS are down there in strength?
I'm saying
No,
if
answer
I,
that question. Do you think that we're safer because of the increased number of Guardsmen and DPS troopers that are on the border? Are we more or less safe?
I would argue that the combined effort makes us safe. However, I'm not worried about Border Patrol. I'm not worried about Customs. I'm not worried about our local law enforcement. We don't fund those agencies here. We fund
We
DPS.
do fund local law enforcement
we fund
here with significant
DPS.
amounts of money.
This
And you
is
know, the
$800 million
taxpayer only has-
of taxpayer dollars, and we can't understand what we're getting for it.
The taxpayer